We are committed to creating a safe and supportive space for our guests and listeners, and to provide information and tools that will help our listeners understand, manage, and overcome trauma. We understand that the healing journey can bring up challenging emotions. Therefore, we want to warn our audience that certain episodes may contain discussions or stories that could be triggering for some individuals. The content of the podcast is for educational and informative purposes only, and we encourage you to practice self-care and discretion while listening, and to reach out to a trusted support system or professional if you feel overwhelmed and need help on your healing journey.
Welcome back to Healing and Growing Hand in Hand podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Tickel, and our guest today is Betska K-Burr, also known as Betska the Guru Coach. I love that. I just love that. And she's going to share with us her story of abuse as a child as well as an adult. We were just talking about that before we started recording, and it's really interesting because I had that as well. And I think that we're going to find a lot of people have experienced that as well. She's also going to share her Science of Mind Kinetics, which she created. So welcome, Betska.
Thank you, Lisa. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your story. I try to remember to thank everybody who shares our story, because it's not always easy. And even though you and I have done a lot of healing and we can share our story, and it doesn't affect us as much, but it does create a connection among others, and that's why I think it's really important that we go ahead and share our story. So thank you for being willing to do that. So tell us about you.
Yeah.
Big sigh.
I think, there's quite a bit. So let me just
Sounds
take
good.
snippets of stories. When I was in my mother's womb, a man from the village hit my mother in the stomach.
Ooh,
hit
yeah.
me, the baby, in the stomach. So you can imagine from that moment on, what is that baby thinking? This is a violent world. Why do I want to even come into this world, right? And then at the age of 3, if my memory serves me correctly, I was sexually abused by the village priest. And then at the age of 7, I was sexually abused by my mother's brother. But that wasn't the worst part of the story, Lisa. My mother's gone to another dimension now, so I can freely discuss it. After the uncle abused me, I went to my mother and I told her the story, and I was crying. I was so upset. As a 7-year-old, you're not really understanding what's going on. You just know that it's not right. So I explained everything to her, and she didn't believe me.
Yeah.
How can a 7-year-old
Especially, why would
lie?
They come to you with a story like that? Of all the stories that they could come to you with.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So many years later, like, I don't know, 3 decades later, I confronted my mother on it, and I said, well, why didn't you love me in that moment and support me and listen to my story and hug me and tell me that you loved me? She did none of those things. So that was another stage set for the fact that I needed to do some inner healing. You say healing and growing hand in hand. I mean, I searched high and low. Well, I'll continue my story because and then we'll get back to that. But then then I had men making passes at me all the way. In those days, it was common. Today men have to be more careful, but always making passes. And then in the corporate world, because I was a woman, I believe, I was passed up for many jobs because, they said the men were more qualified, which is absolutely not true. And at the same time, I had many men supporting me in the corporate world. But I know today, and there was just a study released in our Canadian news media about the fact that women are receiving less jobs, less accolades,
and less money
than the men today. Less money. This is 2024. So, what's really going on there? So my story is one of really trying to heal what was festering in my heart. And the catalyst for that was our daughter, Tanya, who was born in 1990. And all of a sudden, like a couple, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after she was born, I became bankrupt emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and physically. My medical doctor didn't say, I went into postpartum depression or anything. To me, it was, and I'll use this phrase liberally, it was a spiritual awakening. That's what it was all about. I had to turn inside to heal all those wounds from my past, and our daughter was the one who became the
I find that so
catalyst.
common too, that when women have babies, a lot of times that will cause the trauma to bubble up or something, but it's usually an event like that will cause that. This is not the first time I've heard this in a story.
Yeah. And Dr. Christian Northrup, she's an amazing medical doctor. She wrote an incredible book that talked about the fact that her knowing was that if women don't heal their past, as they go into menopause, they're going to have one heck of a time.
Yeah, I did. I even though I had a measure of healing.
Did? Okay.
But at the time when I started the menopause, I was just starting my deep healing journey, so I hadn't done it. And it was brutal.
Mm-hmm. So I was lucky because, anyway, I'll finish the story with the medical doctor. I went to see her, and I told her a story about what was going on. My head was fuzzy. My lower back was in such pain. I was young, and I was having trouble getting out of a chair, the back pain, the lower back. Well, today I know through all of my research and all the work we've done is that lower back pain means lack of support. Well, clearly from my story, I didn't feel supported by my mother or my father, by my siblings, by family and friends, and a little bit about maybe wasn't feeling supported by my husband, although he is Mr. Support,
Yay.
I tell you. But yeah, he's incredible. But it was really, I was not feeling supported by God. That was my main issue. So that's why I say it was my spiritual enlightenment moment. I had to go and heal my past. So the medical doctor said, after doing a myriad of tests, she said, "There's nothing wrong with you." I said, "What do you mean there's nothing wrong with me? I can barely get out of a chair. My head's fuzzy. I'm a senior executive in an international company, and you're telling me, I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't make decisions properly." And she said, "Well, all the tests say there's nothing wrong with you. What I can offer you is antidepressants." I said, "No.
I don't know what's wrong, but I'm going to give you a medication."
No,
I don't know what's wrong, but I'm going to give you medication.
Yeah, exactly. But, in her defense, she didn't know any better. I mean, her training was not such that it was mind, body, spirit. It's just
she's doing what she knew.
Anyway.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, she did. So I said no. And I said, "Well, how about counseling or therapy or something?" So she found me a counselor, and it didn't feel right. Lisa, you know how you just know if there's a synchronicity there? And I just said no. So I just prayed to God, and I said, "Please help me find someone." And then a friend of ours who is an amazing artist, his name is Ken Jackson. He lives in Eastern Canada, and he went to a workshop. He said, "Betska, you need to meet this woman. She is going to help you," because he knew my story. I said, "Okay." So I called her up, and I had 3 sessions with her. She was called a facilitator of stress elimination. But back then, there's no such thing as coaches, right?
True.
Or, So, I just, after the 3rd session, I just felt the veil lifting, the cloud lifting. And what she did in the 3rd session was she helped me identify the biggest boulder sitting on my shoulder, and we threw it out. And helped me to connect
Yep.
my left brain with my right brain, with my conscious, subconscious, superconscious, and then my life took off after that because she taught me a few tools. And when John and Tanya were in bed, I would work for an hour and a half, 2 hours on
Wow.
myself, self coaching,
Mm-hmm.
self healing. I wanted to get
Mm-hmm.
to the root of all of this garbage that was, the patterns that I didn't want to pass these
Yeah.
patterns of abuse, neglect
Mm-hmm.
onto our daughter. And so it paid off, Lisa. I think that's one of the best
Oh,
gifts I gave our daughter.
absolutely. Absolutely. And yourself.
Mm. Yeah, and
I
now
know,
my
right? So you
grandson.
broke that generational trauma and it's not
Yes,
being passed down. Exactly.
yes. No, it's a real
There was a
blessing,
sweet
I tell
story
you.
you were
So,
sharing just before we started recording. You want to share that one? Your support? It was so sweet.
oh yeah, yeah. Thank you. It is a sweet story. Um, my sister was living with a woman, and the woman had an amazing mother. And I was over at their place one day, and my mother had sent me this letter that was full of vitriol. It was shocking to even read, and I read it to the mother of my sister's partner, and she used to work on in a
Mm.
psychiatric ward in a hospital. She read it and she said, "Betska, your mother is not well," and uh, just she said, "Throw the letter away. Don't let it bother you." But here's the part of the story that I think you really found sweet. So the mother, her name is Linda. So Linda said, "Betska, throw this away. Your mother's not well. I am going to be your mother now.
I love that.
And I am going to be the grandmother to your
Oh,
daughter because my mother not being well couldn't be
no.
a proper type of a grandmother to." So anyway, what what Linda did, Lisa, she was so cool. Our daughter went to university, and I don't know if it was for the whole 4 years or 2 years. It doesn't really matter. It was a gesture, before Christmas, where what do you call that in the English culture, where you open up
Yeah, the
21 days before Christmas,
yeah, like the
like
advent
an
calendar
Advent,
or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. So she sent her an Advent calendar, and there was a prize in each one, and then she sent her a gift for every single day before Christmas. Beautiful gifts, whether it was a candle or a T-shirt or something. And that just really
Mhm.
melted my heart that this wasn't her real grandchild, but she was treating our daughter like her own grandchild. And that was amazing. So Tanya had her support, I had my support, and I could go to her for anything. It
Oh,
was
very
very
sweet.
sweet.
I mean, I wish we all had that support system. I mean, I said in one of my podcasts, or actually well, it wasn't a podcast actually, and it became a reel, but how God was with me all the time. It wasn't God that failed me. It was the adults in my life that failed me, and
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
and that realization, it's funny how you tend to just kind of dismiss that. Like for me, it was just normal, right? It was normal for me not to have the support as an adult, as an adult or even as a child from adults. Um, but the reality of I don't know, I don't remember where I was going with that, but anyway, I just thought that was really sweet. I just didn't have the adults in my life that supported me, and so I just learned to manage it on my own. And so I just think that what a special woman to come along to see that, to validate, and explain to you so you could understand, and then support you. I mean, that really, I can't imagine how healing that alone was.
You're right. Your word validation was the key because at that stage with my mother continually abusing me, I thought I
Right.
was doing something wrong,
Normal.
that I
Right.
was the bad person, and so, and then talking about when you mentioned God, my work as a behavioral scientist, I now know, first of all, that I attracted all this abuse so I could
Yeah.
learn from it and then develop the science of mind kinetics, which I
Yes.
know we'll talk about soon. And because I needed to develop tools to heal myself so then I
Mm-hmm.
could help others heal, because for years we've been relying on certain modalities that don't
Yeah.
work or don't work very well. And so we cannot blame God. In fact, I don't blame my mother either, because Lisa, probably when I was in her womb, I already knew I accepted my parents as my soul parents, and therefore I had to go through all that abuse. So I would do the learning and find my patterns, develop healing methodology so that others can heal.
Mm-hmm.
That's my gift, my legacy to humanity. So if I had to suffer a little bit or a lot,
I know, because at this
doesn't
point,
matter.
and I think you'll agree with me, is that we're turning pain into, power, and we're helping others. And the thing to me that, and I want to emphasize this so much on my podcast, is you can heal from trauma. You can heal
Yes,
from
you can.
trauma. Is your life going to be what it was before the trauma, in the direction it should have or was supposed to go or whatever? No. But I can tell you,
Mm,
where my life is at today, I never imagined it being there, because I was suffering so much, and suffering every day, every minute. It felt like I was suffering all the time, even though people,
yeah.
I know people, when they hear this that know me, would be surprised, because I didn't say it, but we can heal from it. We can live fulfilled lives, and we can help others. And that's the second part of the name, like you were
Yeah.
saying, excuse me, of the podcast, Hand in Hand, is so that we can come together, we can help each other and support each other, and bring in, people that can help.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's so interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, so the question I did have, though, how did your relationship end up with your mother? So you had this sweet lady, Linda, that came along and supported you, and became
Mhm.
your mom. So what happened with you and your biological mother?
Well, there are some incidents in there
Yeah.
that I don't want to talk about because it
Yeah.
involves some of my siblings. But what I'll tell you is that my mother took me out of her will,
Okay.
and took my one sister out of the will, and two siblings were left in the will. So her hatred was so strong, and basically I didn't do anything other than support a nephew and support others on their healing journey. But for some reason, she just found me
Do
obnoxious,
you think
or I don't know what it
she
was.
had to have mental illness? I
And
mean, and probably
yeah,
not,
she
did she
did.
have it
Yeah.
diagnosed?
She ended up in
Yeah.
mental institutions at least once or twice, and so I don't know. All I remember is that she was
Oh yeah.
taking tranquilizers and that sort of thing, and I don't think she was schizophrenic or anything. It's very possible that she was just very highly depressed and she didn't know how
Yeah.
to get herself out of it. And it's possible that she was abused as
Absolutely.
a child,
Absolutely.
sexually abused.
Absolutely. You know
Yeah.
what? For us, there wasn't protection, right? There hasn't been protection for children, at least
Yeah.
here in the United States, as far as laws go, until like the late 1980s. I mean, I can't imagine. Like, I think about my mom, and I've learned a little bit about her history. I lost her when I was 16. But knowing her history, and
Oh,
knowing that her mother married a lot of men, and I would imagine the same thing happened to my mom. Kids weren't protected at
yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Oh
they
no, don't
didn't want
talk
to
about
talk
it.
about it. Yeah. And so it festers and festers. And so everyone watching this podcast, please remember, do not store it inside. Find someone to talk to about it so you can heal. And because it's vital. Otherwise, we know that dis-ease
Yes.
creates disease. We know that cancer is
Yep.
an emotional
Autoimmune
disease.
diseases.
I mean,
Autoimmune diseases is common for
yeah,
people with
totally.
trauma, unhealed trauma, unhealed childhood abuse, to get an autoimmune disease, like even like
Yeah,
MS or rheumatoid arthritis. Those are the two most popular ones. And so, and it's also
yeah,
common for I don't know about the men, but the statistics for the women who are sexually abused between the ages of 13 and 17 often don't share the story for 4 decades. So they suffer for 40 years.
Wow.
Suffer. And even though
Wow.
you may think, okay, I've never shared it and I'm just putting it in the back of my mind, I'm fine. No, because this abuse stores in your body and it stores in your subconscious, and your body is going to react. You've
Yeah.
got to work this through. And like you were saying earlier about therapy, it is important that you go to trauma therapy. Talk therapy has its place, but for trauma, there are specific modalities that you need to go through in order to work through this trauma. Otherwise, it's just going to be this long process.
And there are coaching
Yeah.
modalities too that are trauma
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah.
I'm a trauma coach. Coming out of the closet, that's exactly what I do, and it's a good thing that I
Right.
had all of that. Maybe I didn't need to have all of it, but it's a good thing I had it
Correct.
because I can relate.
And you can
And
connect with them.
let
You
me
can
share a
connect with
story.
people. That's the way we
Yeah.
can connect, is because I can identify with some of the things that you're saying. I can connect with some of that, not all of it, but some of it I can, because I didn't experience the other. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I want to read a story. I've got, as you know, I've got I've got one book I've just released called Unleashing Potential, and then another book coming out very shortly that I'm very excited about. But I asked a young man to tell me his story about how mind kinetics, the science that I've
Oh,
developed,
good.
how it has helped him. And yeah, and so it's a long testimonial. I just want to give you
Okay.
2 paragraphs that he goes, the professional help I sought. No, I have to back up. He said, as a little boy, his first episode of psychosis was at the young age of 4 when he started hearing voices. So this is common, right? So then there's more text, but then the 2 paragraphs are, the professional help I sought included doctors, psychiatrists, and therapists. I still have the utmost respect for these people because they helped me somewhat, but it wasn't enough. No matter what they did or what drugs they gave me, it didn't help with the feeling of being broken on the inside. He's in his early 20s now. Eventually, I found Betska the Guru Coach, who was able to give me the help I needed. We worked for almost 5 years, off and on, as I sought help with other methods. Betska helped me the most as I worked through my issues and repaired the damage that had been done from living with schizophrenic affective disorder. So, schizophrenic affective disorder. The first time I worked with him, I went, oh my God. And so I've often wondered, God, why are you sending these people to me? Well, he's saying it here where, the professional help, I believe I'm a professional as well. The professional help, self-help to some degree, but it's the mind, body, and spirit collective that needs to be healed. And that's how the mind kinetics system works. And that's why he just gave this to me
Oh,
last week.
no amount of money can give you the feeling
And
that
you should
gives
see
you
it.
when you know that you've been able to help someone especially someone who's been suffering for so long and so much.
Yeah, and you can see it in his aura and in his voice and his hair and everything about him. He's a changed human being. It took step by step by step, to get him there. And these sorts
Yeah,
of
it's a
things take
journey.
time.
It is a journey, and we do need
So
to be patient with ourselves no
it's
matter
a
what
journey.
modality that we're using. I mean,
Yeah.
I know for me, it's like I want to hurry up and get away from this pain, right? I want to hurry up and stop, being in pain. So let's hurry up and get this done, And there's times where things happen really quick, but for the most part, you kind of got to work through things, and you got to feel the pain, unfortunately, a little bit.
You got to feel it.
So tell us about the
Yeah.
Science of Mind Kinetics. How, more about how you created it and what it is and how it's helping people.
hmm There's lots to the science. Let me just pick out a few main pieces. In order to heal permanently, and that's what we do. Clearly, my story about this schizophrenic young man, we need to heal permanently. We cannot just do a Band-Aid type of healing, and that's why talk therapy can work, but for deep issues like this, it doesn't work very well. So we need to find the root cause. If you have anything around your trauma, we need to find when that trauma started. When was the seed planted in the subconscious mind? And the subconscious mind is living in up to 100 trillion cells in our body in different chakra systems, right? So it's complex, but it's simple because I've developed the science to be very simple, and we have coaches from around the world who are attending our schools to learn how to do this science. So we need to find the root cause of when the pattern began and find out, well, what was the negative belief in the subconscious mind that keeps perpetuating the pattern? So what is it? And so with relationships, for example, if the trauma is caused from relationships, well, it could be a lack of commitment, right? It could be a lack of trust is a real big one. When you're a very young girl and you've been sexually abused by men, you know, a little spin-off of the story, when I started working in this field, I was working with my coach, who's now gone to heaven. She was an amazing woman. And you know, basically I had to understand that these patterns are so deeply buried, and they could be buried in different cells and different chakras. So we have to heal them all before it'll go away. But this one gentleman came to me for a session, and he had cancer. And so I said to him, "Sir, you know, for what reason do you have this cancer?" We also went into a subconscious mind, but we had a logical discussion about it. And he popped, you know, his receptors in his cells popped. The light bulb went off, and he just said, "Oh my God." He said, "I just realized why I have this cancer." I said, "Well, tell me." He said, "It's because I took it so that I could become closer to God." Simple answer. So we worked on that, and his cancer went into remission. I never saw him or heard from him after that, but we've had many stories of that mind, body, spirit connection. And so when you talked about 44 decades, holy smokes, you know, we have to find the root cause, and then we need to take people into a higher level of thinking. What does that mean? So in any given mind kinetic session, we will have a logical discussion using the conscious mind and the left brain. You know, the whole analytical side. You know, what were the intellectual and physical roadblocks stopping you from achieving your goal or overcoming your challenge, right? And then we take them into the subconscious mind to find the emotional and spiritual roadblocks and blind spots stopping us from overcoming a challenge or achieving our goal. And by the way, we can take someone into their subconscious, and in less than 5 seconds, the client will come up with the age of when that pattern began. 5 seconds. It's so fast. That's why we've won so many awards for this science. It's so fast. And the client gives us the age. We don't, the coach doesn't, but we take them into the different cells in the different chakras, and boom, it just comes flying out.
Wow.
And then once we find the pattern and the negative beliefs that are stored in the subconscious, we rewrite their programming. We rewrite it. So the negative belief that's stored becomes a positive belief. And then the best part, we take them into their superconscious or their God self for solutions. And they literally stream in solutions from their superconscious in the same fashion that Einstein did, how he created the theory of relativity and everything else that wonderful man invented. So the science of mind kinetics literally replicates how Einstein used to
Interesting.
think.
So it basically helps take out blocks so it can open up so that we can start receiving.
Yes. Yes, that's the key, because if we're so blocked,
Right.
we cannot receive. God can't help us because we are so filled with negative beliefs and negative emotions that are stuck. We're angry, we're
And then what
frustrated.
I used to do is I would meditate on that. And I would overthink it and overthink it and overthink it and spend days and days and days thinking about that. And so, and whatever you're focused on is what you're going to get, right?
Mm,
So I would
that's
focus
right.
on this negative stuff and then wonder why I felt like crap.
So how did the meditation help you with that?
Well, no. Negative meditation in that I would meditate over and over. Yeah, I would meditate on the
Oh,
negative. See,
oh,
we can
got it. Oh, okay.
meditation can be negative too,
Ah,
right? And that's what I did. That's what I did. I would sit and think it over and over and over and over. I would torture myself. I mean, when I recognized that I was an overthinker, I was so relieved. Because then I knew I'm an overthinker and I know there's solutions to that. But no, I would beat myself up.
I see. Well, I'm going to guess
Yeah.
lots of men and women.
Yeah. I think it's very common.
Yeah. And some things happened, Lisa, since the pandemic. Things seem to be getting
The
worse.
pandemic really, it did a number on everybody. It did a number on everybody and our mental health, everybody. But there's some people that are really, 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 really suffering from it and have not come out of it. And it's frightening.
No. It's almost like the pandemic exasperated what was already a traumatic life. And so
there's
people,
help.
reach
There's
out.
definitely help. I mean, you can even reach out to us. I mean, we'll find help for you. We'll help you. We'll find help for you, whatever you need. Absolutely. You know, the one thing I wanted to go back to is the abuse that you got as an adult, because we kind of talked about this before that we started recording, and I know in my life that was common. And the reason why I want to share this is because I think it is common, and I want other people, you know, who have maybe experienced it realize, you know, it's not you. This is unfortunately part of the pattern of trauma and abuse. And I, you know, there was one day where I reflected because it was about 2 or 3 years ago where I really kind of put my whole timeline together of my life, and the little areas where there were, you know, kind of gaps, I was able to fill it in so I could kind of see my story. And one of the themes, it was really interesting, and it really it did help with my healing journey, because one of the things that I recognized, besides some other patterns, was the pattern of abuse in my life completely into my adult life. Workplace that I lived in, you know, that I worked in, I actually had bosses. I had one who was doing drugs, and she was verbally and just short of physically abusing me. I go on to another job where they actually do physically abuse me, verbally abuse me. I mean, where I had a boss that literally picked me up and flipped me in the air onto the ground, onto my back, literally. I didn't see it coming at all. It was really crazy. I quit not long after that, but I could see that pattern throughout my life. And I felt like, you know, and I've talked when I was doing the childhood abuse healing workshop, I know it's really common for people who were sexually abused as children to be raped later on in life, you know, to deal with that, to deal with more sexual abuse as an adult.
That's right.
And so you almost feel like you're, you know, it's written across your forehead, you know, abuse me. I'm here to abuse. I mean, that's, you know, I remember thinking, why is this happening here? I couldn't understand it. And I think that is common.
You know what? Here's a very interesting thought. The end of the story is that if we don't get rid of those patterns,
correct,
we're going to keep repeating the pattern until the day we die. And the patterns could cause us to die younger. So we have a methodology called the Brain Walk Enhanced Power. And we take the client into the subconscious, and they come up with 4 ages. And they tell us what happened at each of those 4 ages. And then we can find the pattern. because the pattern was repeated
right.
over and over and over. Yeah. But the really interesting thing is one of those ages is often an age that's older than their current age. And the client goes, let's say they're 45, and what comes out in the fourth age from the subconscious is 65. And the client says, well, why is 65 coming there? I said, well, because the system is trying to tell you that if you don't heal those wounds now, you're still going to be traumatized at the age of 65. So get rid of it now. That's how deep the subconscious can be, and how it's such a powerful instrument for us to use to heal.
Yeah, be able to manage it, because it can help us, right? And it makes sense, because one of the questions I was asked early on when I first started doing podcasts, and I've repeated it over the time because it's a great question. If left unhealed, the childhood abuse, will a person go on to end up in an abusive or domestic violent relationship? And it's yes. And it's not going to be the way always the way you think it is. Because when I think about it, when I think about back then, I didn't see that workplace behavior as abuse. I didn't. I know it was wrong. I'm literally going back to that time in my head and bringing up what I used to think. And I did not think it was abuse. I knew I didn't like it. And literally when that guy flipped me over and I landed on my back, I can't even tell you the humiliation. I can't even tell you the shame. Everybody felt, because he did it. And then my other boss was standing right there. And it shocked all of us. Like everybody just like, I remember they went back to their offices. I jumped up. I got in my seat. I started working away, and the tears were pouring down my face as I was working. But I didn't see it as abuse. So that's why I want to bring this up.
Well, yeah, I'm hearing you. Yes. What is abuse, right? Well, anytime when you are physically abused, anytime you are emotionally abused, anytime you are spiritually abused. Let's talk about the spiritual abuse for a moment, because you could have neighbors, you could have family members, like this thing with my mother. I believe she was constantly sending me negative energy. Constantly. And we have another tool where we take the client in to find out who is causing this, who is like put this curse on you using.
That's what it feels like,
And they, exactly. And there's this big wall. They literally close their eyes and they can see the wall, and then they take the wall down.
Yes,
and the freedom that comes from that, because it's like, sorry to use these, but voodoo and black magic are out there for a reason. People they learn that negative energy to cast negative energy onto you. And so, like we need to protect ourselves. We need to understand it, right? If those walls are there, we need to take them down. And I don't know of any therapy that can do that.
No, not that I know of. No. And, you were saying a minute ago, we got to be careful about ourselves spiritually. We need to be careful about what we listen to, what we watch, what we say, what we think. I mean, all of that. What we read. I mean, I'm very careful about, I can't even watch action movies anymore. I used to love action movies, and I'll tell you the part that really gets me, and I really can't watch these kind of movies, is when the bad guy just goes around and he's hurting and killing these innocent people, and he's going to get it in the end, but I can't. I just can't do that. And so that negative, I literally lose sleep at night. So we do have to be careful about what we meditate on.
Yes. And that's why I think it's a good idea to find the right teacher as well for meditation. And maybe we'll have a chance to talk about that. But
and so with the Science of Mind Kinetics, is it just for trauma? Is it just to heal trauma? So tell us what else that you can use it for.
No, good question. Well, I'm a corporate gal, so my early clients and started off, and I still do it today. I'm an executive and life coach. And so I work a lot with corporate executives, CEOs, directors, boards of directors, etc. And because you probably know that I think the statistic is that 95% of corporate leaders have narcissistic.
Why do I believe that? I experienced that. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
So, I mean, that's why, I remember coming home. I was working in the Yukon. I was doing a weekend workshop for some corporations, and oh man, they gave me a hard time. So I went back to my hotel room and I called my coach, Jan, and I was crying on the phone. And she said, "What are you crying about?" And I said, "Well, they were abusing me. I'm not doing this work anymore. Don't tell me to go into corporate." And she laughed. She laughed at me, Lisa. And she said, "Well, if you don't do it, who will?" Because it takes courage to go into those workplaces, right? To deal with all of that negativity and talk the toxicity. Yeah, but I don't take any of that, excuse my language, crap. I don't take it from people. So they can't bulldoze me, if you will. So yeah, we do. I do lots of corporate work.
Do you help the narcissist? What do you do? I mean, what do you help with there? Because I mean, a narcissist, you got your hands full with a narcissist, right? So how do you help? Do you help the employees, or I mean, how do you help them?
Yeah, first of all, a narcissist will try and take the power away from their employees.
And they do.
Right? They take the power. They do. They're successful at it. So we need to give the people, the employees, back their power. And then the employees could be mid management, could be higher, etc. And that's where we start, because often these narcissists at the top don't think they have a problem. It's everybody else.
It's everybody else. If they only do things right, I would be fine.
I want to tell you another story. This is a cute one. So we got this corporate contract, and I said to the CEO at the top, I asked to speak to the CEO because the HR person wasn't passing my message along. So I asked to speak with him. She was afraid of this guy, I think. So anyway, I said to him, "Sir, we believe that everyone in the organization needs to have the Science of Mind Kinetics for coaching. Everyone, because we don't know where the issues are, right? And you may not even know where the issues are." So I said, everyone needs to have a Mind Kinetics coach. And he said, "Well, all of us at the senior level have a coach." And I said, "Okay, so tell me about your coaching." He said, "Well, I meet my coach at the bar on a Friday night. We have a glass of beer and we have a discussion."
That's a buddy. That's a buddy. That's not a coach.
Oh, God. No, exactly. So I just said, "Sir, sorry, that's not what I consider good coaching." But so he didn't want any coaching, but I said, "Before I will sign this contract, I need you to promise me something." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "Part of the contract is we're going to do the one-on-one coaching, we're going to do group coaching, and then we're going to take all of you senior level managers and middle managers to a retreat in the Rocky Mountains. And we're going to spend 4 days with you. And whatever tools we teach you, first of all, you need to promise you're going to bring your senior team there. And then all the tools that we teach you, I need you to promise me that you're going to practice and you're going to coach your middle managers, allow your middle managers to coach you." He agreed to it, which was kind of interesting. And then before we even got to the retreat, all of the middle managers were telling him about the brain walk. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about the brain walk yet. It's free to anybody in the world if they've got anything going on in their life. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But anyway, the middle managers were telling him about the brain walk and how amazing it was. So he called me up and he said, "During that retreat, are you going to teach me how to use the brain walk?" So anyway, there are different ways to get to.
He was a teachable narcissist.
Was he a narcissist?
That's good. I mean, I know they're on a spectrum. I actually had Dr. Spicer on here. Her podcast just came out and she talked about the spectrum. She talked about, from the low end where someone can be, they're willing to work. They're willing, it's more like kind of like narcissistic maybe tendencies, all the way to narcissistic like behavioral disorder, where they're high end.
Here's another story. Because I do executive coaching and life coaching, we teach all of our coaches around the world to do both. Because if you're working in corporate, you have to have life coaching skills because they're probably
right. Exactly. I was just saying, because I was just thinking the story you were saying, the last one, I could see how you could flip that over into just regular life. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So this one client came to me from a friend, and she just knew that I could help this person. And this lady was living with this guy for 3 years, and they decided to get married. And they lived together for 16 years. And his narcissistic tendencies evolved after they were married. They tend to hide it. So in the end, he kicked her out of her own home. She owned a condo, and he changed the key so she couldn't even get into her own condo. She was basically living on the street. She found, friends to live with, but
this is not uncommon.
And so, no, exactly. And so I worked with her, and we had to give her power back. She had to believe in herself. She had to understand how the mind works and how relationships work and what was really going on with this
and undo
dude,
all the stuff that he did, because it messes with your mind so much and can create so much confusion.
Oh yeah, she was, I tell you, unbelievably low. And make a long story short, I even had to help her write letters to her lawyer and questions and so on and so forth. And here in Canada, in our province, if you live with someone for X number of years, then you basically, if you sell a condo, then or whatever, you get 50%.
So it's kind of common law marriage,
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. But they were married. So anyway, in the end, because she had her power back, all he got was $10,000. He literally should have got $500,000.
I would love to hear a narcissist lose.
But he got all he got was $10,000 because she was in her power. She wouldn't even let her lawyer, what's the word? Abuse her.
Wow.
So Mind Kinetics is very effective for life coaching, as I shared with you about the schizophrenic young man. And then we use it in the corporate world. We use it for all 7 areas of life. It could be spiritual, social, family. Did I say spiritual, physical, emotional? It could be your workplace. Could be in any area of your life, because when you have these patterns, they can often be repeated from one area of your life.
They often are, and they often don't even look exactly the same, so you don't realize they're a pattern until you lay it out and you kind of look at it, right? Because it'll be a little bit different, and you're not seeing it until you lay it out, and then you're like, oh, now I see it. So tell us about the brain walk, because I'm curious.
Well, do you remember when George Bush attacked Iraq?
I was in the hospital with my son.
The world was so angry, and I was angry, right? And I just said, God, I can't handle this bloodshed anymore. This has to stop. I said, please give me a tool that I can give to the world to help them with their anger against George Bush, or their anger against anyone or anything, or their frustration, whatever negative emotions are coming out. And actually earlier, a few years earlier, my coach Jan had helped me with the early beginnings of the brain walk, but it wasn't fully developed yet until George Bush did that. So the brain walk is free of charge. People can go to www.thebrainwalk.com. And there are 2 different versions on there. I've developed 8 versions, but there are 2 that we allow to go out for free, because You need a coach
Okay.
to help with the other ones. You know, they're more difficult. But with the Brainwalker Journey for Peace of Mind, just the
Right.
title alone makes you feel good, right? So when they get onto the website, they encounter step one is a random generator, and it's filled with different values, like the values of spiritual values. There are 76 of them, like thankfulness, devotion, wonder, humility, acceptance, honesty, love, all the values of the human heart. And so the random generator taps into your subconscious mind, because energy is energy, and you immediately pull out the top stressor challenge in your life right now. The value, right? This is thankfulness, for example. The value that represents your number one stressor challenge.
Wow.
And then you type in, there's a little box, and you type in, well, what is bothering you around thankfulness? Well, it could be, I am such a what's bothering me right now is I am in such a negative spot. I'm not even giving gratitude anymore. Could be, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you lose that when you go into a depression.
And that can pull you out.
And then
it can help pull you out.
Yes. And then exactly. And then step two, you pick another values card that is a strength of yours. Because when you're in such a bad state, you even forget about your strengths. Like this woman married to the narcissist, right? We had to keep reminding her, what is wonderful and beautiful about you? What is it? And how can we use that to overcome your challenges? So that's what the brain walk will do. You will pick a value like diligence. Well, how is diligence a strength of yours? And how can you use it to overcome your challenge? And so the solution immediately could come out that, well, maybe I need to bring back my gratitude journal, and before I go to bed, write in it what I'm grateful for from the day, because maybe they lost track of that tool. Yeah. And then they walk the brainwalk map. They're going from lower chakra all the way to the higher chakra, and then end up back in their heart. And out from their superconscious now comes a solution in the form of a symbol, an object, feeling, sound, and then they have to decode it, just like Einstein decoded what he got, right? Einstein had to do it the difficult way. With mind kinetics, we've made it really easy. So let's say they stream in a man singing in a Hindu temple. And maybe they've never even heard of a Hindu temple, right? But it comes in from their superconscious. So they have to decode it. Well, what does a man singing in a Hindu temple mean to me? And they would say, well, if he's singing in a temple, then he must be very devoted to himself. And then, well, how is that a solution? Solution's very clear, isn't it? That this person who's doing the brainwalk needs to get back to being devoted to themselves.
They're not devoted to themselves.
And disconnect from all the people who are trying to put them down. So that's what the brainwalk does, and it is
we'll be sure to put that on the link. So because I'm even going to go try it out.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm going to try it. I'm really curious. Yeah. I love this stuff. It's interesting. It's, I don't know. Our minds are just, there's so much we know and there's so much we don't know about our minds, but it's, I just love that there's these tools out there because, and I've said it so many times, the reason why I created this podcast is to help shorten people's suffering, because I suffered for so long because there wasn't the modalities. There wasn't the understanding. There wasn't, we didn't know the things about trauma that we know now, or abuse and how it affects us. And, we didn't know how to heal. And for years, I went to just talk therapy and I did a lot of healing on my own. I definitely did measures of it, but it's been over the last 15 years that I've had the most. And I think it's because we've got all this great tools out there now.
Yeah, absolutely. We do.
Yes, absolutely. Free tool? Love free tools.
Um, we have many on our website, but the one that I would love to share is when we have gone through any kind of abuse or trauma,
Mm-hmm.
fear
Oh,
sits
yeah.
sits in ourselves. The fear, because we're afraid of, oh, what's going to happen next, and someone else is going to abuse me, or I'm not good enough, or
Oh,
whatever
yeah.
it is. The
Deep, deep,
fears just
deep.
come out. So what you do, this is called the picture frames method. And this was taught to me and us by my spiritual teacher, Supreme Master Ching Hai. So she said, close your eyes and lift up your left hand and imagine you have an oval picture frame in this left hand. And you're going to turn and look in that picture frame and allow your biggest fear to come into that picture frame. Allow it to manifest there, and you will see it. And then you just say, okay, well, say to yourself, well, what is that fear? What is it? So articulate it. You can stop and write it down if you want. And then you lift up your right hand, and you have another picture frame in the right hand, and you look inside that picture frame, and your next biggest fear is going to appear. Of course, Lisa, these are
Mm-hmm.
coming from your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind, right? Yeah. So the next biggest fear is going to come up, and write it down. Well, what is that? Really be clear on what that fear is all about. So now you have your biggest fear in your left hand and your next biggest fear in your right hand. And then at the count of 3, you're going to smash the two frames together. 1,
I
2,
love
3,
that.
smash! And you can do it 3 times. And then here's the big piece. Out of that smashing, into your wisdom eye is going to come a positive symbol, object, color, feeling, or sound. And that is a solution to whatever is bothering you.
Very cool. I know
Cool, huh?
fear is a huge thing. I still struggle with that. Yeah. And it's so insidious in that all of a sudden you're feeling fear and you don't even realize, like you're feeling the fear, but you're not aware of it. And then when you become aware of it, it tries to pop up so much still.
Yeah,
It still
sure
does.
does.
It still
Yeah,
does. I love
still
these
does.
free
Yeah.
tools.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us how the listeners can get a hold of you, how they, and of course we'll have all of your links and everything available to everybody so that they can get their free tools here, which I love. But how can people reach out to you?
Mhm. So my email address, I welcome emails, Betska, B-E-T, as in Tom, S as in Sarah, K-A, at coachingandleadership.com. And is A-N-D. So Betska at coachingandleadership.com. And the website is the same, www.coachingandleadership.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook,
All the
Instagram,
social
wherever
medias.
you want, however you want to connect. And as I said, we have coaches all around the world. It doesn't matter where you live. I have coached people in Syria, Mongolia, Iran,
Wow.
Iraq, India, all over. I have clients in 50 plus countries.
That's that's the
So
beautiful thing about the internet
it
is that
doesn't,
we can help someone clear across the world. I love that. We can
yeah,
reach them. We can help them. We can
yeah.
help them create a better life for themselves. I love that.
And Lisa, that's what you're
That's,
doing with this podcast.
thank you.
Thank you for this gift you are giving. This is
I
huge,
hope so.
what you're
I want
doing.
it to be. I want it to be huge because I want it to help people. I want to help not just
Yeah,
women, but men shorten their suffering, heal earlier so
yeah.
they can have
Oh,
that
yes.
full life
Mhm.
longer. I mean, I have a full life now, but I got it later in life.
Yeah. Just like the schizophrenic man, he's in his
Yes.
early 20s. Wow. what a gift we have the
Exactly.
rest of
And
his
that's one thing
life.
I used to
I
say to
mean,
my son. I still say, because he's still
yeah.
young. He was also born in 1990. But learn this. He's such a wise young man, and he was always good at listening. And I love that, because I say, honey, listen and learn this now while you're young, so you don't have to suffer for years and then try and learn it later on in life. Learn it now. And he did. He did. So very wise, very wise. So what do you, go ahead.
But
Yes.
can I just finish off? I said this earlier, but I want us to repeat this, because the best gift I gave our daughter was to
Yeah.
heal me.
Yeah.
And I continue to heal me, right? It's never ending. But because I was healing me, I was not passing my patterns, those generational
Yeah.
patterns, on to her. And so, all parents out there, moms and dads, please heal your wounds so that you can then be these strong role models of loving,
Mm-hmm.
compassionate
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because we don't want to pass this along, and we can live
Mhm.
healed and fulfilled lives. That's the message I really want
Yes,
to get out,
we can.
because I didn't have that hope. I didn't have that hope when I was doing my early healing.
Ah.
I mean, I started at 19. I didn't have that. All I knew is I wanted to get
Mm.
away from what this thing was that I was feeling inside, which was pain. I didn't realize that's what it was. I just
Ah.
knew I wanted to
Yeah.
get away from that.
Yeah.
And
I hear
so,
you.
yes, you can heal.
Yeah.
You can learn to, live a fulfilled life and have a fulfilled life. Absolutely. And you deserve to have a fulfilled life. It doesn't, it's not as
You
important
do.
where you start as to where you finish, right? So what do you want to leave with
Absolutely.
our
Good
listeners?
job. Um, the science of mind kinetics is very powerful. At the same time, it's important that we meditate every day. And it's important that we meditate with a living master. So, for example, if I need my teeth fixed, I go to a living dentist, not a dead dentist.
True.
If I have to see a medical doctor, I see a living doctor, not a dead doctor. They can't help you. And it's the same with teachers, spiritual teachers. Find one that you can trust, because there are a lot of meditation methods out there that are
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
safe.
You need to be really careful. There's so much stuff out there, and it can
So,
be dangerous.
yeah. Yeah. So feel free to write to me, or they can write to you and ask, well, give me some names of
Yes.
some safe ones that you know of, and I'm happy to share, because uh, there's something that happens. All my healing, I believe, the science of mind kinetics was hugely instrumental, but my meditation
Mm-hmm.
practice was also there, because the 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 inner master, helps you heal faster and helps
Yeah.
you erase a lot of that karma that you've been collecting from past lives and so on. It's massive. So I know that my healing happened because of mind kinetics and because of my meditation practice, which is the Kuan Yin method. So just some extra little,
Yeah.
an
Well,
extra
thank
little
you.
tip
Thank
there.
you. Yeah. And thank you for, coming on the podcast and sharing your story. I know it wasn't easy, but what I love is that you shared your healing
Yeah,
journey, and you're making a difference. You're making a difference all over the world. How awesome is that?
I am. I definitely, yeah, I definitely am, and I thank
Yeah.
God for that, because I just
And just,
turn to God and say thank you, thank
yeah,
you
I
for
mean,
that gift. Yeah.
it's making beauty from ashes.
Yes.
I say
Oh,
that
I
all the
like
time, because that's
that.
exactly what we're doing when we're making beauty from ashes. That's exactly, always sticks in my mind. I almost named the podcast that, but then I thought people won't always get what that means. So I want them to understand,
No.
what the podcast is really about. But thank you so much for sharing. Thank you
That's
so
great.
much for being a guest. This has been wonderful. And to the audience, I do want to reiterate that we can heal from this. We don't have to live in suffering. We don't have to suffer the rest of our lives, and we don't have to pass this on to our children and our grandchildren, the
Yeah.
legacy.
Oh,
We can heal from it. We can learn to manage it. We can have fulfilled lives, and each one of you deserve that. So I do want to ask the audience too, if you want to reach out to us, if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to us, send us an email, and we'll be happy to answer. If I can't answer it, I've got a lot of experts that I have that I can send you to. So not a problem. I can certainly send you to the right person. So thank you again, Betska. It was great. I really enjoyed our podcast.
Thank you.